Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine, and I have a super simple project to share with you today. These are available on my website. You can find the link in the description box below. We're going to be making these little cards using this Fabriano watercolor paper. This is hot press watercolor paper. It's 140 pounds, so it's nice and thick, and it measures 9 inches by 12 inches. So the first thing we're going to do is trim this down. I have my Caterpillar Pro. I'm going to trim it down to 8.5 inches by 11 inches so that I can feed this through my printer so that we can print out these little cards. So in order to do this, I'm going to put it into my paper tray, but I'm only going to do one sheet at a time to make sure that my printer can handle this heavier paper and it doesn't get jammed. So it did really well to print them off, and you can print them off in black and white. In this case, I just left it the colors that came originally, which had a few colors here and there, so you can print it off in color if you'd like. Next, I'm going to trim it down, and I am eyeballing it, so I am just giving it about 1/8 of an inch trim all around each of these cards. Each of the cards have a little border, and I just want to trim it off so that there's just a little bit of white space around the border. So now that they're all trimmed off, and there are 30 cards for approximately 30 days of Ramadan, it's time to make the little box that you can put these little cards in. So each of the cards have a little activity that you can do for the month of Ramadan, and some are super simple, some are a little bit more involved, but there are directions on each of these little cards. So now it's time to trim off the little box, and I use my paper trimmer as well as a pair of scissors, and then at one point I even use an X-Acto knife to get to some very detailed points. Because it is a heavier watercolor paper, you can damage the paper if you are twisting your scissors through these smaller areas. But once everything's done, it's time to fold it up. And I find that using a bone folder or another tool in order to crease the paper makes folding it a lot easier. You don't need this is optional, but it does give it a nice crease so that when you do fold it, it folds along the lines. So I'm just going over this a few times with a ruler to make sure that it is straight. And then you can see a very light crease on the other side of the paper, and then we can fold it a little bit more easily. So now it's time to assemble the box, and I'm just making sure that I've got all of my creases. I'm folding everything really well, forwards and backwards, and you only need a little bit of glue on one side. I did need to trim this down just a little bit. You do want to trim around the entire box. There are directions on how to do this, and then we're going to add a little bit of glue and spread it around before we assemble our box. You do want to make sure that this dries thoroughly before you start handling your box. And then at the bottom here, you just have tabs A, B, and C in order to bring it all together, and it snaps in place really easily and it stays nice and secure. So it will take a little bit of time to dry, and once it's all dry, then you can take your 30 little cards and put it in your box, and then each day of Ramadan you can pull out one of the cards and try one of the projects suggested on the cards. I also have a lot of videos for each of these cards, so don't forget to check out the Ramadan playlist so that you can see some video tutorials on all of these projects as well. I hope that you enjoyed this super simple project. There are so many in the Ramadan bundle that you can find on my website at pepperandpine.com. You can also find the link to that bundle in the description box below, where you can find all kinds of really simple printable projects that you can do with your children during the month of Ramadan. If you'd like to see how our Ramadan is going with these wonderful little activity cards, you can find me on Instagram and now on TikTok at Pepper and Pine.